Very quick question. Thanks so much, Kirk. I'm thoroughly enjoying listening to you. Um, I, without violating any security clearances or classified details, could you put us in the room with a firsthand witness and describe what it felt like and what the expressions of other potential senators that may have been there, again, no names, what it was like to listen from a potentially firsthand witness? Can you put us in the room and tell us what the atmosphere felt like?
Well, James, I don't think in a way that it's very hard to imagine. It's certainly I speak to myself. What was going through my mind is shock and kind of reeling. It's a tough thing to get your mind around, and to be confronted with it. Coming from another person whom you find credible based on their credentials and their clearances and their background and all that. It certainly it makes it hard to go to sleep at night. Um, for a good while. Um,
What did the senators, did they have a sort of slack-jawed appearance as well, or was it just
uh, no, I mean, I don't think any of us fell on the floor, in anguish or anything, but it was very serious and very sobering, and there was, just rapt attention to what was being said and trying to absorb it. But yeah, they would take this information on board.
did you get the impression that these individuals were scared?
Well, it varied. Certainly, in some instances, some people, there was real fear. Yes, there was real anxiety about speaking out what they had to say. Yeah,
For
it
their
was very
career?
disturbing to them. Yeah.
Very disturbing to them, yeah, okay. So in other words, they believed that there would be dire consequences, or that there could be dire consequences for sharing this information? Is that sort of the impression you got?
Certainly, there was no mistaking that. They made that perfectly clear what they felt like the stakes were for them. But I also think that there was an element of for them of having it just cross their lips in a setting like that. To say what they had to say. It was sort of momentous for them, I think, as well. So in a way, I think it was, if anything, harder for them to be saying these things than it was for us to hear it, maybe.
It's like a weight off their shoulders almost.
Um, Sure, James. I think there was an element of that. Yeah, I would say that there almost certainly was an element of that. I haven't really thought about that before, but now that you mention it, yeah, I would say yeah.
Mm. And when you came home and saw your friends and family, do you feel like you couldn't, obviously you can't, was it a burden for you?
Yeah, it's a burden for me. In some ways it feels kind of lonely, and it makes you really wonder what the future holds. It is. It is also the case that, like, as I'm talking to the people at this attending this event, there's a lot that I feel and have always felt can be shared about it in broad terms, and the like. And believe me, when I first started talking to my wife about this, it was, it was like I was watching her eyes carefully to see just how crazy she thought I was, uh, and and so and I will say that I could see flashes going across her mind, is like, oh my God, after all these years, did I really marry the guy from A Beautiful Mind? Uh, so yeah, it's. I mean, I'm sure everybody who has come to accept the reality of this has been through a similar experience. Um, it's like, holy God.
Yeah. Yeah, but so you kind of came to that conclusion on the inside, and I kind of came to that conclusion on the outside, right? So my field investigations is what led me to believe David Grush was telling the truth, not just because David Grush testified under oath to a bipartisan group of lawmakers, but it aligned with my research in the field.
James, I get that, and certainly there is a difference, but you know it's not fundamentally different. Um, you know, so much of, I mean, would I have believed these people if that was the only source of information about this? I think the answer is it would have been much more difficult to push the I believe button if not for this mountain of external evidence, which is the stuff that you have waded through yourself and produced some of it, right? Uh, there's just so much out there to consider, to evaluate, to weigh, and to factor that into, how you respond when someone is telling you face to face that they have inside knowledge of this. I mean, after all, there have been books written by people claiming the same thing, right? Claiming inside direct firsthand knowledge, right? I mean, Philip Corso, there's lots of them out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I'm relating is just, uh, a handful of modern face-to-face revelations, but there have been others that you have researched yourself.
Hey, thanks so much, Logan. It's so great to hear you talk here. One of the in my humble opinion, best photographs of a UAP ever taken was the Calvine 1990, referred commonly as the Calvine incident, the Calvine UFO or UAP. And I thank you to David Clark and former RAF press officer Craig Lindsay, really, and Nick Pope, stuck my teeth into that case. And when I was sharing some of the details with you, you kind of blew my mind as to being potentially a witness. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yes. So in 1990, January 1990, I was assigned to go to my first intel unit overseas, going to Europe, and the exercise that normally would take place back then. Anybody in the military that's been in since the 80s and the 90s would know the term reforger. Stands for return of forces back to Germany, because we always thought we were going to fight in the Fulda Gap against Russian forces. And what was funny was on the flight over to Rhine-Main, the base that was open at the time, we were between Iceland and Scotland, and I was eating on a Philadelphia cheesesteak. Um, if nobody's been to Philly, go get a cheesesteak, by the way. Anyway, we were coming down, and the sun was just coming up, and me and the guy that was sitting next to me were eating, and I looked out of the window, and there was a diamond-shaped object zigzagging in the clouds. And I was like, what is that? And the guy's like, yeah, what is that? And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, hey, I'm going to my first intel assignment. oh my God, this is probably some super secret, cool, what do you know? I'm going to find out about it. So I kind of played it off. This thing disappeared in the clouds and we landed. And I asked my bosses at the time, hey, what's out there that does all the zigzaggy stuff? Everybody looked at me like I was an idiot. So I found out years later, shortly after, I had NATO AWACS show up where I was at. They were said, "Hey, what are you doing with the Americans? You're from England. You should come fly with us." So I was like, "Sure." So I took that as the opportunity to ask the question, "What's out there that's doing all the weird zigzaggy stuff?" um, and they were like, "You know," and I was like, "No, I don't know." And so they showed me this tape, and they said I saw something whiz right through the air traffic of all the aircraft that were flying around, and I said, "What was that?" They said, "That was your SR-71." And I said, "Oh, then that's not it." And then they pulled out something else and they showed something zigzagging just like I saw it in the clouds over between Iceland and Scotland. And I was like, "Yeah, that guy." And they said, "We don't know who he is. We always thought you guys knew who he is. We always just assumed it was you Americans playing with us." So, long story short, to fill in the rest of what James is saying, this was also at the tail end of the Belgian wave, which I didn't know anything about. But after I did the interview with James, James was throwing something at me and he showed me the Calvine picture, and it was the exact same thing that I saw. And I was like, "What is that?" Because I had never heard of this Calvine picture. And he's like, "Dude, it was the same year. I think it was in August. You saw your thing in January." I was like, the only difference I saw was the object that I saw was kind of going between black and white. And in the picture that I saw, it looked kind of whitish, but it was the exact same thing. And I was like, okay, this just kind of adds to the picture that there's definitely something going on, because I didn't even know about this thing. And James kind of shocked me with that one.
So let me ask you, when you say AWACS, so they picked it up on radar?
Yes.
So they picked it up on radar. How many sets of eyeballs on it?
On the screen there was a bunch of guys in the back that all saw it. But I was asking the question, like, who is this guy? They said, "Dude, he said we vectored aircraft towards it, and as soon as the aircraft get close, it zips off somewhere else and whatever." And I was like, "Who else knows about this?" And they're like, "Everybody." I said, "Everybody in your squadron?" He goes, "Yeah, we all know about it." And I was like, "Okay, if you say so." So it was just one of those notes that you kind of put down and put in the back of your head, and just kind of, okay, someone verified what I saw, and it was unusual, and you kind of throw it away. But it's, again, until James popped up with this image, I was like, "Oh crap, there it is."
So you're telling me you saw, and they picked up on radar, an object that exhibited a wild technology with no wings, no visible means of propulsion type of thing?
Well, you can't, on a radar, you can't see all that stuff. You just know it's
Okay,
an object
but
that
you saw
is
it with your
zipping.
eyes too,
It's
right?
just zipping around.
But but
And
but 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 you saw it with your eyes too, not just the radar, right?
what I saw, yes. But
Okay,
what they were seeing on the radar was something totally different.
okay.
Now, I didn't correlate it to what date and all that other stuff, because I was just in shock that they had something that was zigzagging around and whatever. But um, the what I saw outside the window was it would go into a cloud, and as fast as it was moving, you would expect it to just pop back out at the same angle, but it would come back out at a different vector. And I was like, "Dude, what is that?" And I thought I was seeing something at first, until the other guy confirmed that he was seeing it too. Because, you see all kinds of weird things out of the window sometimes, on the ground. You're not quite sure what it is. It could be a car, it could be a truck, or, some sunlight glinted off something on the ground. But in this particular case, I had confirmation beside me. And then when I talked to these guys, they confirmed that there was something out there that was zipping around, exhibiting the exact characteristics that I saw.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's really impressive. Just another little piece of the puzzle on that case or that craft. Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you, Logan, if you could explain to me exactly how the app works as in layman's terms. So I've got this app, right? So let's say I have your app, Phenom, and I see something up in the night sky that I'm unable to identify. So I open up the app, I point it at the object, and then does that information upload to a database for everyone to have access to? How does that work?
Okay. So, along with what you just said, you've got the app, you see something unusual out there, it starts capturing the data. It uploads it to a database, but what it does initially, it will send it out to everybody and let everybody know something's just been captured. Now, there will be fakers, people that mess with it. I had one guy send me a beautiful picture of his guitar. I'm like, I don't know why you did that, but whatever floats your boat. But once the data comes back, it will come back into a central database that we will work with other people and share. Now, I don't own your image. The only thing I'm asking for is co-utilization, so that when we get it and we start trying to compare it and show to like Taylor and Eric Davison and company, I'm not asking everybody, mother may I, mother may I, mother may I. You get your 15 minutes of fame. We just want the data so we can help figure out what's going on. So you're contributing to the whole bigger picture. The other thing that I would like to add is that we're adding something called teams, that if you're part of a team, let's say the four of us are all interested in the same subject. The beautiful thing is that if Kirk goes outside and sees something, if he's part of the team, it will immediately send something to Kelly and James so that they can maybe get outside and see the exact same thing and catch it from a different perspective.
Mhm.
Ultimately, whatever is captured between all of these tools, when we get the outliers, we'll pull it all together and put a case together to say, hey, Kirk, can you help us get this to the right people in Congress so that we can figure out what's going on, or we're going to tell you what's going on based on the analysis done through academia and the rest of the group. But the idea, all I would ask people is you got to participate, or else you're going to be speculating all day long.
Okay, so when you point, I'm just trying to get this right. So you've got the app open, you see something, and this is so relevant right now because people, my phone is blowing up with messages from people all over, friends that live in New Jersey that are going, I've seen it 7 times in a row now. What am I looking at? It seems to be a SUV sized drone, but does, in some cases making noise, other cases not making noise. So if you point this, it collects the data and sends it back to the database. Does it also tell you if it's something conventional with a flight path plan?
Not right now. We're working on that. But what we really want to do is we want to bring the data back, and we've got an artificial intelligence. I was just having a demo on a different artificial intelligence this morning, but we've got an artificial intelligence that we're comparing the data to, so we can sit there and go, here's all the conventional stuff that we know of, doesn't fit this. Here's some of the weirder stuff that's out there, doesn't fit this, and now here's your outliers. And we want to concentrate on the outliers and get it to the right people. Does that answer your
Yeah,
question, Jay?
definitely. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. I just honestly needed some clarity for me. I mean, I've heard about these apps and they seem more relevant now than ever before with all these bizarre sightings taking place all over.
Right. So one of the things that I really want to do is I want to have like a guild where before, before once we get into academia, that's great. But I want to get like you, Kirk, Kelly, George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, Leslie Keene, all of you guys to review all this stuff because I want your input to make sure that once the analysis is done, there could still be errors. All right. I don't consider myself an expert. I am a collector of data that I am trying to help solve a problem because that's what I like to do, solve problems. If you guys like to solve problems, I'm asking you to join me and let's go figure this out all together.
This is directed to both Kirk and Logan, please. Um, I have learned over the years that everybody talks about the lack of more compelling data. And a lot of the insiders that I've met with clearly said, yeah, that data exists. It's 4K video, radar, and then they talk about, why it's not released. And I think it's one of the justifications commonly used is ways and methods, or methods and ways, or something. And I think to myself, well, sure, can't you just get rid of the rest of that data and just produce the image of the object itself? So what, in your opinion, Kirk and Logan, um, what are the real reasons why they're not revealing or releasing the more compelling data that's been collected internally?
I'll let you go, Kirk.
Well, Logan, you were the intelligence officer, but what people have said to us is, yeah, to kind of repeat James's characterization, is that they say, it's the platform and the sensor that took it, that you can derive characteristics of the sensor based upon the data that is released. And I don't understand the science of this, but I have heard this so often in the past, even in connection with non-UAP events, that there's some basis for this, but I frankly think that this is mostly based upon that they don't want this stuff to come out. I think they feel like it, if nothing else, that it breeds some, not hysteria, but, fascination and preoccupation on the part of the public for reasons that they think are unfounded. But, I also think that they try to keep this kind of thing from Congress, where it's not a classification issue. I think it's just that they don't want Congress to see this kind of stuff.
Okay. Giving this some thought, there are some technical reasons, sources and methods, I think is what you were trying to allude to, James.
Thank you. Yes.
There are some very valid reasons for that. Okay. And I believe there's reasons for keeping secrets and there's other reasons for not. But there is data that is there. I guess you could scrub it and everything, but I think some of the sources and methods might still be revealed if someone's smart enough. To the average person, no. To a trained person, oh yeah, definitely. And I would pretty much leave it at that. But again, this is why I'm saying the public needs to come together, because I don't think you need the government to get the answers. I think you need the public with the right tools. And taking those right tools and then handing them to someone like you, James, so that you can show it to the world and to the rest of your colleagues, show it to the world what is there. And I think that's the best way to go, because if you don't have a clearance, people can always hide behind that. Hey, you don't have a need to know whatever. Was that term physician heal thyself? Hey, let's take care of ourselves and we'll figure it out.
Thanks, you guys.
Kirk, did you have one more thing you wanted to add?
Very, very quickly, I certainly endorse and appreciate what Logan is saying. One of the challenges that we have is that who's gonna provide the instruments and the calibrated instruments that you'd really like to have recording a UAP. And part of the problem is that the stigma around this issue, frankly, really inhibits the scientific community. If we could get past that, I think there would be many more opportunities and people pursuing those opportunities to, get sensor data, scientific sensor data on these things. That's why, I think that the Soul Foundation and Avi Loeb's initiative, and I wish there were 1,000 of these. And I think that if it weren't for the stigma attached to this issue, we probably would have 1,000 of these. Trying to get data on this phenomenon. And boy, that would really be helpful in achieving what Logan is describing.